Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my first four-player playthrough of the Core 2026 campaign, Brethren Mash. I was at a board game convention recently with a couple of my friends who have been playing Arkham with me for a little while, not too long, honestly. They're relatively new, but they love the game, and they wanted to teach the game to another person at the convention. So we got together as four people, the two other people plus me that have played together for a little while, and then a new person. So we were thinking about doing it and a different day, and I was going to go home and get all of my cards and fill in all of the gaps with the investigator decks, the new Evergreen investigator decks, like might have played Carolyn or Tommy. But then we decided, let's just do it tonight. In the board game convention, there's a library that has a bunch of games that you can check out for a little while. And Arkham Horror, the card game, the new set was one of the things that you could get. And I was a little hesitant because, just playing with the core set cards is tough, especially with those pre-constructed decks, which are awful. So I was like, well, all right, I guess we have time tonight. Let's do it. And it was a good time. I said, instead of just playing the pre-con decks, I'm not going to do that. I don't like it. I know some people say it's really good for teaching people, hey, here's a good look at all the different cards, or that you really should build a deck. I don't like that. I do think that uh, you don't want to give players a bad first experience or a frustrating one. I really wish that FFG just had, here are our recommended decks for playing four players, and if you want to play another investigator, you got to make some changes. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I wish would have happened. I do get that, especially in this kind of convention situation where you're just checking out a game from the library, you're not going to sit around and make new decks. Um, it takes forever for setup. I get it. But I'm not willing to play that way. So what I did was I took four investigators, as you can see, Joe Diamond here, and Dexter and Trish and Daniela, and I said, guess what? I'm going to take the cards and make relatively okay decks with just the core set cards. And as my friends were explaining the new player the rules, I sat down and was just going nuts. So I made four decks in about like 10 minutes, and there's not that many choices, but it was a fun exercise for me. So I'm going to share this with you in case you want to play four-player with just the core set cards. Here are some things that I think work. I did a series earlier on my channel that was a better core deck for each of the investigators, but that assumed you're playing like two-player and didn't really know who you were playing with. In this case, it's the four investigators I chose. And I left Izzy at home. I think Izzy is a fun investigator, a very, very interesting one, especially for veterans. But I got to tell you, the cards that are in her deck, the ones that she wants for the most part, there's way too much overlap with Dexter and Daniela. And if you're playing four-player and you're playing Izzy, you have to have one of those other ones. So unfortunately, the Mystic and Survivor card pool works really, really well with those two other investigators. And I don't think Izzy has enough stuff on her own to make her worth playing, which is sad to say because she's incredible, very fun design. So again, I picked Joe, Trish, Daniela, Dexter, mostly because the new player played Joe. I thought it'd be an easy time because it's just pretty straightforward what you do. And I wanted to see that what it was like for a new player to experience the game with the core. I haven't had that either. And then I picked Daniela because she's very good at dealing damage. Dexter because he's interesting and cool and shows off the mystic stuff. And Trish because evasion is really important, especially in that first scenario of Brethren of Ash. So I'm going to go through the decks real quickly, and then I'm going to, and you can use these if you'd like, change things, whatever. Talk about my decisions here. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the playthrough of the first scenario, Spreading Flames. So spoilers for that, but we'll make a clean break in between talking about the decks and talk about what it was like playing four-player, because it's just a different experience. Easier in many ways, and harder in a few ways. So I'll talk about that too. All right, let's get going. Here's Joe. Again, this was for the new player, and there's no Guardian cards here. This is a little unusual, but I needed all the Guardian cards that really were good for Daniela. And there really isn't a whole lot of reason for Joe to be fighting in four-player if he's the one who can get basically all the clues. So that's kind of where things were. It worked really well. It was a good time. I'm not going to again talk about the campaign itself until later, the first scenario, anyways. But I want to talk about like what worked and what was difficult for the new player, I think, to figure out. So first off, I think most people who teach the game run into this that committing cards and playing cards and discarding cards, those are all quite different, and it's kind of unfortunate that is a hurdle. I think at the beginning, it's this new player is very good at games. It wasn't didn't take very long to figure this whole thing out. But something like sharp rhetoric, understanding that this is an asset and not something that when you commit it, that you get all of these abilities. They're only when they're in play can you then trigger the ability on them. That's always been a problem with Arkham, but this card wasn't used for its intended purpose. It was just used for committing, but it's here for the boost really for Joe. He doesn't really need it though. We stacked up to 7 pretty easily in intellect with Dorothy, with the hand crank flashlight, with a magnifying glass, and we even got the fingerprint kit into play as well towards the end. It is a bit expensive, but I think it's necessary to start picking up extra clues with the action compression, so I did want to throw it in here. Otherwise, we noticed that Joe draws a lot of cards. In fact, probably too many because we couldn't really get rid of them fast enough. Had to discard down to hand size because we couldn't hold on to the um, laboratory assistant. She was really good, but for drawing cards, but with only one ally slot, can't have both her and Dorothy. And Dorothy, I think, is just better if you're doing investigations over a long period of time. So in my better Joe Diamond deck that I put up in the channel earlier, I didn't put Dorothy in here. I believe I went with Logan for fighting, but this is not really a fighting deck. There's a broken bottle, but not really what Joe wants to do unless there's a big problem. So yeah, this was the deck. Not much to say about it. There's just all the good secret cards. You draw a lot of cards, you do a lot of basic investigates or investigates with the flashlight or the fingerprint kit, and I think that's really good for the new player to say, I can just do the one thing over and over again, be really good at it. And while Joe's 2 willpower and 2 agility are kind of a problem, you have other ways to deal with things that come up that are willpower or agility tests, namely have someone else do it. Treacheries are a problem, but we have enough skill cards to throw at them, so which is good. But, I mean, I guess I didn't really mention the investigator abilities here, but if you, as you see here, he's got this ability after you successfully investigate, draw a card, and you just end up having tons of cards. The fedora is in here because I had to put something in. That is, I think, why it's in the deck originally. The Joe Diamond deck comes with the fedora. It's a filler. It was played, but and it's fine. There just isn't another card that I should have put in here instead. I think even the Guardian cards that were unused from Daniela, not necessary to put in this Joe deck. So that's Joe. Speaking of Daniela, this is the one that I played, and I think new Daniela is very good as long as you have ways of healing your damage, and that mostly is Alexi. Her weakness is very tough. In harm's way here, after you deal damage to an enemy, you take another damage back, and you got to do this 3 times. That part's not hard. Like you will do it, but you're taking 3 damage every scenario that you draw this, which can happen. And she's fragile. I have a lot of soak in here, but with only a 3 willpower and 2 agility, she will fail a lot of treacheries. Now, her ability also, after an enemy attacks investigator at your location, fight that enemy using a basic fight action or fight ability on a card is very, very good. So basically, she gets 4 actions when dealing with enemies that have attacked her. Problem is, getting attacked is kind of bad. In other words, you need to have extra health and sanity around. And with her only having 5 sanity to begin with, cards like Logan, who I did play initially, but he had to eat it because, you know, I need to make room for Alexi. So yeah, I did put a lot of red stuff in here. I ended up not playing the meat cleaver. We really just ran with the wrench, which is a very, very good card in 4-player because of this exhaust ability to choose an enemy or location, have that enemy engage you. The attack part's good too, but I think with 4-player, where there's lots of enemies that can show up, potentially 3 or 4 around, you want to get them off of other people so they can continue playing. And this can happen during any free triggered ability window. It can happen before someone else takes their turn. Really, really good. Of course, you could just take your whole turn first anyway, but it's nice to change the player order a bit, at least with regard to what enemies are doing. And so there's a couple things I'll talk about in the encounter cards, which are interesting in 4-player too, but I found this to be quite useful compared to her old wrench in Chapter 1 that didn't have that engage effect. The fight ability is really good. You're fighting at 7. You can boost that up with other stuff. So, um, very happy to have drawn it early. Also, made pretty good use of the M1911. It's cheap and it does the trick. Other thing that I think was really good was timely intervention. I mentioned that her stats on willpower and agility are not great, but this helps her out to sometimes pass those tests. Otherwise, yeah, pretty standard stuff. I only went with 2 copies of Lesson Learned as far as clue getting. Didn't include anything else because clues are handled pretty well. I think the other investigators could do it way better than Daniela can, and I mean, she can do well too, but I think since she can pack as many weapons as you see here, you just focus all in on that. And it was good. I only was a little bit worried about dying, um, but it didn't happen. The Hunter's Instinct, this is such a good card, and yet every time I've played this, it's always just not really done much. In this deck, all it really is picking back is emergency cash, but I don't think I mean, this could have been something else. I don't know what, maybe jumpsuit. But I thought I'd give this another shot. This probably could be just more so, could be jumpsuit, which I don't think that ability does much for Daniela either because you're not losing your weapons that often. So, not bad, but I feel like I haven't gotten max value out of this sort of thing in the same way that I have with, say, Miguel de la Cruz or maybe Izzy to some extent too. All right. That's Daniela. This works really well. Again, pack as many weapons as you can and some allies, and you just kind of go to town. Once you get set up, you have a few things. You don't really need to draw too many more cards, and that's not a whole lot of card drawing here. Endurance was also in here for the excess resources towards the end of the scenario. So yeah. All right, that moves on to Trish. Trish is a tough investigator in the core to build for. Remember, she's sharing green cards with Dexter and yellow cards with Joe. Again, this might be where you say, well, this is why there's only, you can have one copy of everything across them so they get a lot of stuff. Like, I don't think Trish ends up with much that is really good for just Trish. She would like those secret cards too, especially with her 4 intellect. It's hard to boost this just using the rogue cards. So unfortunately, I wanted to have 2 copies of everything, and that's where we landed here. So I think this deck was the weakest one. The problem is that you don't get to good numbers that easily for things like your Thieves Kit or even local map. Probably this could have been the deck for the Sharp Rhetoric. I could have done that, but I like Silver Tongue. I think this is a great card for Trish to use for evasions, and I think that the thing that, again, knowing the campaign, I think that what Trish does better than anyone else is she gets that evade. She gets that extra action to evade, and she's probably on agility treachery duty. In fact, across the whole core, right? You have Joe has 2, Daniela has 2. Talk about agility here. Dexter has 3, Izzy has 3, and Trish has 4. So even though you might say, well, she could get clues pretty easily with, all the stuff we saw in Joe's deck, what Joe can't do is what Trish needs to be spending her time doing. So we got the local map for getting some clues. I actually found this to be pretty good in 4-player. We had the revealed locations. That wasn't a problem. The moves were reasonably fine. Picking a different shroud was good. I think this was better than what my initial thoughts were, given 4-player. So this actually made some sense. Again, there's the extra movement stuff in Trish, so cool. The Hammerless saw play, but didn't see any use, unfortunately. It's just hard when you only have a 4. Okay. Olivier obviously is very good. Thieves Kit, he just kind of has to go in this deck. Covert Ops, good, but also good icons. I'll tell you more about that later. Silver Tongue, as I mentioned before, this is fantastic. 1 resource for +2 for your evasions, and then you get a refund on that with your sticky fingers. It's just worth the play actions in 4-player. You don't need to go super, super fast, unlike in 2-player solo, where you don't really want things to stack up for too long. You can take a few turns where, like, I'm just playing things, okay? We can chill. Even with things like the Ancient Evils equivalent, Cosmic Evils, it's okay to do that in 4-player. Gather Intel, I think, made sense in this deck because Joe already draws a million cards. This was good. Through the Cracks is bad. It's just too expensive. It it does something that Trish wants to do. It just costs too much. All I need to say about that. Out of Sight saw a commit, but it was a commit for 1 icon, and nothing in the text box mattered. Unfortunately. I think this is kind of a dud card, too. Now, in 4-player, the Black Chamber Operative is fine. This was for Daniela to deal with, so that was good. I think in 4-player, this is fine. In 2-player or solo for sure, this is really tough. Got to come up with other ways to kill this guy. But having a friend deal with the Operative, totally okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, really, this was just get a few clues every now and then and evade the heck out of all the enemies. So that was this deck. Otherwise, it's good. Like, it does the thing. Her stats are good. Yeah. Last one was the Mystic, Dexter. Dexter has the ability that after you play an asset, either return another non-story asset you control to your hand or play a different one from your hand, paying its cost once per round. I told the player who was playing Dexter at the very beginning, you're going to really want to use this ability all the time, but you're just not going to be able to because it's just there aren't enough things and the resource costs and everything. Well, you know what happened? First turn of the game, she played for my next trick and found a spell, played it, and then played another card. And I was like, all right, well, we're off to the races here. The only green card in this deck is Lucky Cigarette Case. And boy, howdy, there was that a good put in here because, well, you can do so much more when you have cards in hand, and drawing cards is, it's the name of the game, right? It lets you play those extra assets, lets you get to all your good stuff. This deck actually was really good. I think every card except for Lucky Charm, because we had the Sig Case in play, saw play. We didn't see the Cloak. Cloak would have been fun. But all these other cards were really good. I think in my discussion about Dexter on the channel before, when I said here's a better version of the deck, I should go check that real quickly. But I'm pretty sure what I did there was I put in the bottle and maybe overpower instead of the flashlight. And this here we put manual dexterity. This could be perception also. Although I think there's only 4 copies of perception, so I guess she couldn't put that in the Dexter Drake deck. So we went manual dexterity. So yeah, I think the flashlight is better just sort of knowing what the scenario does. But it's also really cheap, so it was good. In fact, what we did was we put Will of the Cosmos Doom on that hand crank flashlight and then got rid of the Doom. It was fantastic. It was a really good time. This is actually, I think, a pretty decent deck. In fact, I almost want to go check to see what the difference was between this one and the one I recommended everyone in the video a few weeks back. Yeah, this is the one. The difference was, like I said, the bottle didn't have the Lucky Charm. A few more skills in here. Didn't have room for another Overpower since those were used by Joe. And then there were 2 copies of Spiritual Intuition. And I guess the Prestidigitation wasn't in the one I gave because that was in the Trish deck instead. But very, very similar. And I looked at this in that video that I talked about. I was like, I don't know if this is any good. I was a bit skeptical. But honestly, the one that was actually played, this one, was incredible. I think because once you find your spells, your Cosmic Flame, your Second Sight, you can just do pretty much anything. And I played solo Dexter on the channel a week or so ago, and it was really good. This deck worked really well, and I guess there's not much more to say about that. So cohesively, everything worked out really well. I think this is totally possible to have a reasonably good time if you build your own decks in 4. Now, if someone insists on playing Izzy, I think you need to really think about that, because as you can see in this Dexter deck, you have to use all the slots for the spells, and maybe you do have to go down to one-ofs of things and share them with Izzy. I don't know. I just do not prefer to have one-ofs, especially when you're first learning the game. That's too many cards to look at, much less consistency, and I think that just makes the game harder but more frustrating, really. I know people differ on. Some people have commented that they are okay with that. It's okay that you just play the precon, but boy oh boy, this was really fun and cool with the decks I built here. I would make a few adjustments. Like I said, maybe the Sharp Rhetoric goes into Trish also, or instead, or I don't know. Maybe you can do a few one-ofs and share some cards, but by and large, this worked really well. So now I'm just going to talk quickly about the first scenario and some of the encounter cards and how we dealt with them, especially with the new player. So let's get into that now. So here are the core set cards. Um, the biggest thing in this first scenario is it's railroading you a bit into following, it's a tutorial, right? Following a particular path. First, you get all the clues on the first location. That's this one. Not a problem. It's pretty easy. It is funny to look at this and say there aren't any other locations or enemies. Like, what the heck is this action for when you're new? And we just said, well, maybe later. And then what happens on the act flip is you spawn this guy, Servant of Flame. Now, the experience we had with this guy at 4-player is he's got 20 health. So it's really, really obvious that when the act says things like, it might be better to run than to fight this guy, no one had any discussion here. It was, yeah, Trish, go evade. It's tough though, because with a 4 evade, a new player might not know, or if you don't have Trish, that you need to go in there for one action. You need to spend an action to evade, and then you move to the next location, which is the quad. Now, for Trish, she's got 4 actions, right? So one of those could be a failure. Maybe that's the idea, that you can try this twice and then move through. If you have an extra action there, like she does, and she passes on the first evade, then you can heal in the dorms. That's this location, dormitories, has a heal ability. Otherwise, everyone is just kind of taking a turn around where they're just moving a couple times, and then you all advance. But that was fine. And everyone looked at this guy and said, there's no way we can kill him. I think in the back of our mind, well, I mean, I already knew, but I think in the back of everyone else's mind, it was like, yeah, he's just there to be scary. They didn't know he was going to come back, but they also initially didn't see the victory because it's over here in the corner. I don't love this. I understand why. They probably wanted more room in the text box for other stuff in cards. So to move the victory off into the corner here is okay, but it is a little bit less conspicuous, especially if you played Chapter 1. Then you would think, hey, it's supposed to be here, but it actually isn't. Okay. The third part, where you're going around to the different locations, is pretty straightforward. There's 4 clues on all these locations, and you just kind of go there and get them. This is where Will the Cosmos came in really nicely, but mostly it was a bunch of basic investigates and sending Joe around the map. Now, one difference between playing 2-player, 1-player, and the higher player counts, and I've not played 3 yet, is that the quad does not have this ability to move around fast. But that's fine, because generally you're okay. You have the extra actions to move when you don't need to deal with every problem that pops up from the encounter deck. So it was actually fine. I didn't notice this being any slower, for example. Then at the very end, you spend your clues here at the Orin Library, and we ended up getting all but 2 clues. I think we left 2 clues sitting around, maybe on the dorms. So we didn't have 100% of the clues to fight this guy the third time. So in the last uh, act here, you get to spend 4 clues as a group to deal 4 damage. So you have to collect all 4 in a group essentially. In solo and 2-player, I mean, you don't need as many clues. Of course, there aren't as many to begin with. But like think like the bundle, so to speak, of clues that you need is feels a little different in 4-player. Like if you're not going to get the last 4 clues, then you don't need to get them at all. Just like stop investigating. So yeah, we ended up not being able to get them all, and we could instead deal damage directly to the guy. So you have extra clues that are sitting on the initial location. That's where we took the flashlight and threw the flashlight, and then the shroud was 0. It was a bit tricky though, because at the end there were a lot of enemies around. We'll talk about the enemies in a second, but we had to talk over attacks opportunity. Said, you know what, it's better just to take attacks opportunity and uh, investigate, get the clues, plan out that last turn and say, we're going to win. If we don't get all the clues this round, we might die because there was fire everywhere. But also, I love that this guy says the first action you perform doesn't provoke attacks opportunity. Surprisingly relevant in that part of the scenario. So, I think we did 14. Let's see what it was. I think I must have done some damage normally, but I think there was maybe we did 12 damage with the clues, and the rest of the 8 was me and Dexter just beating up on the Servant of Flame. 4 fight is really tough in lower player counts. In higher player counts, everyone can commit stuff. You're all sitting in that same location probably. The prey being the lowest agility is kind of funny because then you can't have Trish engage and evade without it being like kind of a waste. But getting up 4 on standard is not that hard to beat the retaliate. I felt actually totally confident about that. Playing as Daniela with also help from other people. So actually felt, I wouldn't say easy, but it was maybe the easiest time I've had fighting this guy because it just felt like, oh yeah, we have this whole round of 16 actions to deal with this guy. Not a problem. Okay. That was the first scenario. It was fun. It was a little, I wouldn't say like completely tight, as we did get to the last agenda. I think there was probably 6 or 7 Doom in play, mostly because Cosmic Evils, which I'll show on the screen now. I thought they were all up at the top here. They are. This one, to place a Doom on the agenda, this just, we saw, I think, 3 or 4 of them. And in lower player counts, you probably don't see them as much. But I did, I think I drew the first one, and I said, I'm doing this. And then after the peril was gone, I was like, you kind of always have to. Taking the direct damage and direct horror and then getting another card just causes the deck to go through quicker. It's not impossible to do that. I think you can towards the end because you feel like you're have a lot of Doom pressure, or you've got a combo with like the Doom from Will of the Cosmos or something. But that never came up. So that was a good teaching moment to talk about this. Other encounter cards that we saw. The bystanders, we drew a lot of these guys too. I think we drew 4 or 5. And they're really annoying. They're good for Trish to evade, but then they just sort of stack up and you're like, ugh. But at least we had both Trish and Joe who could do the parlay to discard them. I do like them in this first scenario. I think it's very funny, and it's not just an action tax. It's a little bit more challenging than that. Also, towards the end, you can say, maybe I do just want to kill them. Maybe I do. Or maybe they die in the fire. So you gotta be careful with that. Okay. Hellhounds being 3 health, really relevant. It's nasty in the first scenario. Their ability to discard an asset you control, that never happened. But a 3 health enemy early is tough. Also, the monster, where's the monster? This guy, Mutate Experiment, really tough also. Each investigator taking 1 horror. If there's 4 investigators because you're stuck in that first room, maybe you want to evade them. It's interesting. It's a really interesting card. I like the difficulty of this first scenario compared to the original. In fact, after we were done, we talked about it a bit because, again, the 3 of us who had played before had played the original Gathering scenario, And we love this one way more. Like there's a lot of mapping, obviously, from that scenario to this one in terms of like the Servant of Flame has the same amount of health and stats as the Ghoul Priest, but it felt much more engaging at the end to still want to get clues, have other enemies that were relevant. Lead a Chantler, of course, you could do, but then the clue getters were just kind of like watching the rest of the game. They weren't really able to chip in as much. You could do evasions or something, but yeah, I felt like there was a lot for everyone to do, which was great. I know a lot of people are, thinking about the chapter 2 stuff, and I know the announcement for the new campaign has a lot of interesting decisions that people are all over the place on. But for the campaign that we actually know about, the Brethren of Ash, I think it's good. It's really good. And going into chapter 2, we didn't know a whole lot. You get little bits and pieces and you say, well, I can nitpick about stuff. Like I will. There's a lot of criticisms I have of the core set and the investigator decks. But now that I've played this core set and with just the core cards and with more, but also different player counts, like holistically, I think it's a really good product. The campaign is very interesting and fun, and the new player was super into it because I think they understood the gameplay loop very well and thought it was just a fun time. And we all had a good time. It was stressful. Like we did draw auto fails and -4s, and the scenario reference card was a little mean sometimes, and a lot of cool just like stuff happened to show off what the game can do, like combos of things. Granted, they had me teaching to some extent, showing what all these mechanics are supposed to do, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's easy for us to read about the new products and without actually playing or knowing about anything beyond what they've told us, maybe we get a bad impression or not the right one. Not to say that I'm not absolving FFG of the way that they announce things, because I sometimes think they do a terrible job of showing things off. Like the core set itself showed off Bodyguard Zero as a card in their announcement article. It's like, my goodness, don't pick that. That's a bad card and makes people lose faith in their ability to design cards. Uh, but when you actually play with the campaign and the investigators, and even just with the core cards, you have a good time because it's a fun game. And I'm hoping that's true for the new campaigns too. That's kind of my last point I'll make about it, but it's really hard to judge until you really see the whole thing. And I'm not saying like listen to reviewers like me. I haven't done a full review of the core set even, but I don't want to jump the gun one way or another because we just don't know. And once the campaign comes out and people play it and we look at all the cards and think about the price and all of that, then we can have a serious discussion about is it worth it? Because I can tell you, like just off the cuff here, I think the core set box here is very good. I think there are some problems, but by and large, it's a huge improvement over the old core, and we had a successful game after that. And I think the Investigator Evergreen decks are good, but not as good of a product as the core actually is. I think there are some bigger issues with those, and I think they're a little bit pricey. All right, we'll see what happens with the new stuff, but I'm willing to be candid about those when I actually see the whole product as well. So that's my little report here from playing 4-player Spreading Flames. Really cool time, had fun. And also, I should also say, like, we just played out of the library. It's my first time playing in person without all of the other goodies. Like, the Chaos Bag was a tiny little Chaos Bag with no coin capsules, and it was fine. I prefer the coin capsules in a bigger bag, but it was fine. And all the other bits that just come in the core box are all right. Like, I didn't have a player mat, didn't have anything else, didn't have sleeves. Oh my god, I played without sleeves, but it was fine. All right, I'll see you another time.